It is a very, very deep belief system that is embedded deep into our psyche as women, that we feel entitled to do what we want, when we want, and to not have anyone or anything telling us what to do. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Let's get into today's topic. I'm excited for this one. We are talking about submissive wife, the secret to a happy marriage. We're going to see. So to start this off, I do want to say and clarify right from the get-go that I do not have an expertise or an understanding of the biblical meaning of being a submissive wife. That is not the angle and direction that we are going today and talking about being a submissive wife. What I am talking about today comes from my own experience of myself as a woman in my marriage and being a happy wife and understanding the roles and responsibilities that we each have in a marriage and relationship as a man and a woman. Yes, you heard it. We have roles and responsibilities and different strengths as women, and men have different strengths as men, and that we are happiest in marriage when we understand those roles and we embrace those roles. We embrace the differences between men and women. That has been a path to happiness in my life, and it's something that, as I share on my channel, that I'm not perfect, but this is my guide and my roadmap to evolving and constantly evolving as a woman and a wife and the best version of myself, because I believe that's a lifelong journey, and having a dance with my husband and understanding and beginning to embrace those differences and embrace those roles and responsibilities. So the purpose of this discussion today on the idea of being a submissive wife is in the context of this channel, the Happy Wife School, and how to be happy and thrive in marriage. So I want to give a recipe for a successful, happy marriage in this context of exploring and talking about being a submissive wife. So the first place I want to go in talking about this today is why as women, we get so upset and so triggered about the concept of being a submissive wife. Even that word submissive will throw us into a huge rage and anger as women. It's like we feel like we have a parent as an adult and someone governing over us, and that someone like has put us in a cage, and it sends us into this huge rage and anger. And the reason for that is that it is a very, very deep belief system that is embedded deep into our psyche as women, that we feel entitled to do what we want, when we want, and to not have anyone or anything telling us what to do. In the face of someone, our husbands or anyone else in our life, telling us what we should be doing, what we need to do, that we do have responsibilities. It is so deeply embedded in us that we should be able to do what we want when we want, and the selfishness that we have It is very, very difficult for us to break out of that entitlement. And I know some people listening will say this is a product of feminism. I disagree. I believe that it has become this entitlement, and our deep belief that we can do what we want has become heightened and more prevalent and pervasive in us as women because of feminism, that it's enabled that in us. But my belief and what I see and what I talk about and how we are as women isn't a product of us as modern women or feminism. That this goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I've talked about this before. We can see it in all kinds of texts throughout the whole world of the things that I talk about. And one of my favorites to quote is Solomon, that he would rather sleep on the pitch of a roof than in a room with a quarreling woman. That's one example. I've also got the Iliad on a shelf behind me. And in the beginning of the Iliad, there's a conversation between Zeus and the female goddesses. And Zeus is so frustrated and so enraged that he gets constantly undermined by the female goddesses and his wife, and that they're constantly going behind his back and doing what they want and behaving in all these woman ways that I talk about. And that was written by Homer. I'm not going to go for the date. I forget the dates, but I know it's somewhere like, I want to say like 800 or 900 BC, somewhere in there. So those examples from history showing this is our women ways and doing what we want when we want, and our stubbornness and need for control and emasculation of men has been happening thousands and thousands of years. And so that's why I believe it is so deeply, deeply embedded just in our psyche as women. So when we think of the idea of being submissive, especially in our marriage, and submitting to our husbands, and we're going to talk a little bit what that means from my perspective here in just a moment, it sends us into this huge rage because we feel we have this God-given born right to do what we want. And we all know it. And there's jokes about it everywhere in media, in sitcoms and movies of women. We wear the pants. So the idea of having to give up that control and have someone else lead, or potentially tell us no, or tell us what we need to be doing, or give someone else the control in a certain area, and that being our husbands and our marriage, it's a huge fight we put up inside of us. So I want to look a little bit what's going on even underneath doing what we want when we want, and why we don't want to submit to our husbands. And the things that I talk about on the channel in our emasculating ways and our woman ways, we truly operate in a relationship with a good man. We truly operate in this vein of being their masters, where we control everything. We must have everything ran by us, and nothing gets done, and nothing can happen without our approval. That is the environment that we create. So the emasculation and gaslighting of a good man by a woman in a marriage, it's like we are a slave master that breaks men down and makes them so weak that they have no agency. That's the behavior that we exhibit in the environment that we create because of that deep need to be in control and have things done our way. We get so angry at the idea of being submissive to our husbands because we know what we are doing to them in the emasculation, in having the control, in wearing the pants, that we would never let anyone do that to us. It's a projection. That anger and rage that we go into in the idea of submitting to our husbands is because we know exactly what we do in those woman ways and how we operate and break our husbands down. And so we project that that's what it's going to be. And we do it in such a destructive, aggressive manner that we believe through our own actions and how we operate, that if we submit to our husbands and allow them to lead, that it will be a destructive, aggressive process where they're in control of us and doing the very things to us that we do to good men, which of course is not true. What I want to talk about today in understanding being submissive as a wife and how I'm going to define that is meant to be done in a very healthy, constructive, loving way, which is exactly what it would be with a good man, because a good man is loving, caring, is naturally wired to want what is best for his wife, to want what is best for the marriage. And a trademark of a good man, of all he really, really wants for his wife, is for her to be happy. And the idea of being submissive is really in this understanding, and through my experience as a woman, is understanding that I do have roles and responsibilities as a woman, and that when I allow myself to submit to those roles and responsibilities as a woman, and like I say, I'm not perfect. I struggle with some of these things that I talk about. But when I allow that in myself, I feel really good about myself because I'm being who I am, a woman. And I'm contributing my part to the marriage to have a dance with my husband and allow him to be a man. For a man to feel like a man, he needs to be in charge of the household and the family unit. For a man to feel like he is a man, he needs to be in charge of the household and the family unit. And again, not in a destructive, aggressive way in how we operate as women, but as a good man where he feels respected. He's seen as the head of the household. He feels admired and approved of. And he can shine in his strengths as a man. A man can't feel like a man when he is emasculated and gaslit that he is wrong in everything he does and who he is, and treated like a child. That is a recipe for a failed marriage. As women, when we treat our husbands as weak and weaken them and break them down, make them bad and wrong, treat them like children. I think this is important to really understand in my message. The emasculation breaks a good man down and causes him to be disconnected from who he truly is, and he gets sucked in to his wife's interpretation of him. His reality gets completely distorted, where he truly believes the things that his wife makes him feel about himself and believes he is the problem. That's the effect and the spell of the emasculation. So there's plenty of men who will comment of like, a real good man would never let that happen. No. A good man is defenseless when he doesn't have the education and doesn't have the insight of what's happening in his marriage. It's like a veil is over him and he can't see what's happening and what his wife is doing. He literally becomes powerless. He's unknowingly given that power away. That's part of why I'm here. One is to wake women up. Part of the title of this channel is The Red Pill for women to be woken up to the truth of our woman ways so that we actually have a choice to change. And also for good men to wake up from the gaslighting and the crazy making that's ensued in their marriage, to see the reality of what their wife is doing so that they do have a chance to regain their confidence and know who they are as good men and fight for themselves and fight for the marriage and fight for their wives because it's been beaten out of them. It's something that good men have to heal from. The emasculation is something good men have to heal from to be able to rebuild their strength and confidence and get back who they are as good men. And that's part of the women who are open to my message and are open to being red pilled and seeing the things that I talk about. That's what you want to be listening to in today's message, and understanding being a submissive wife is to allow your husband to be a man again and allow yourself to be a woman and have a dance with your husband in your marriage. That's really what it means to be a submissive wife. This is like dancing. And we know as women and men, when we dance together, literally, like if we were to go ballroom dancing, the man leads. So being submissive in a marriage is learning to allow your husband to lead as the man with a gentle touch. It's just like dancing, and understanding that a good man wants what's best for his wife and wants what's best for the family unit. He has your best interest. It's our own selfishness and need to be right, need to be in control, need to do what we want when we want, that we buck back like a wild bronco in allowing our husbands to lead. But when you do, that's where you can have a successful marriage, because it becomes a dance. As women, we're the opposite of our husbands as good men, that all we can think about is ourselves. And there's no concept of the priority of the family unit, because we only want what we want. I'm going to define submission. All submission means is respecting your husband's opinions and decisions as the leader of the family, and not invalidating him. I'm going to say that again. Submission means respecting your husband's opinions and decisions as the leader of the family, and not invalidating him. That works for a successful, healthy, happy marriage where you can both thrive in who you are and work together, because good men are natural leaders. They are problem solvers, and they are rational decision makers. That's their nature. For the women listening who say, that's not my husband, he never makes decisions, he's completely given up and checked out, I have to do everything myself, you need to know that's the effect of emasculation. If you look back to the man you married, there was a reason you married him. And you look back to the man that you married before you began to beat him down in your woman ways, and you see the good man that you married, then you can understand the reason he has changed is because we've taken away that power from them through constantly making them wrong, constantly shaming them, constantly undermining them and doing what we want, making the decisions, strong-arming them. And over time, that's broken them down and weakened them. So this is an opportunity to see that in yourself, not to make yourself bad and wrong, but to give yourself a path forward to actually be able to change. That's what I had to do. And that opened up a whole new experience of myself as a woman and a person and a wife that has led to me and my husband having a dance. I had to be aware of the environment that I had created in my marriage and what I had done to my husband. And over time, as I began to change, he began to find his strength and show up as the good man that he is. And we have that dance. And like I say, I'm not perfect. One of the toughest things for me is staying in my lane and letting my husband be a man and seeing him as a man who's capable of his own decisions and has his own agencies and can do what's best for him and make mistakes and fall down and get back up and keep going. I use the expression parent. I have to parent myself and be diligent with myself to stay in my lane, to focus on me, not in a selfish way, but focus on me to do the best I can, and trusting my husband to be a man and to make decisions and feel safe and secure in myself so that I feel safe and secure with him in the marriage. Now, where I want to go is I want to plant some seeds. This section is just planting some seeds for us as women and also planting seeds for good men to know what's reasonable in a marriage and what are reasonable roles that we can each play as women and men to have a successful, happy marriage. We're going to get into 3 ways women need to be submissive in a marriage. These 3 ways are very practical and a way for women to begin practicing letting go of the death grip of control that we have in our marriages and that we have over our husbands, to begin to actually feel a lot better about ourselves, to allow our husbands to thrive and feel better about themselves, and actually have a dance and be a team in the marriage and working for something bigger and greater than just who we each are. So the first way, and 3 ways that women need to be submissive in a marriage. Number 1, let your husband lead in the financial decisions. Number 1 is let your husband lead in the financial decisions. Respecting his opinions and decisions about the finances. So this is an interesting example that I have come up with my students and that I have in my men's course. So the good men in my men's course use this example a lot. And I've seen it a couple times actually just in the last week through their homework and reflection work through the course. A lot of good men are married to women that constantly want to do projects around the house and want to be renovating, or doing different things to the yard, renovating different sections of the house. I see it all the time. I didn't know that this was such a big issue. And when good men are learning to look at the issues and challenges in the marriage, what they need to address through a tough conversation, this is a common example that comes up. And as women, we will buck, like I said, like a wild bronco, like, no, but we need to redo the kitchen. And we need to do some landscaping to the yard. And we need to finish the basement. And it needs to happen now because we want what we want. And a good man who is generally financially responsible sees, no, we don't need to be doing all of this. We need to be thinking of our future and thinking of our kids' future, and making responsible decisions around the finances and doing all these projects is not something we need to be doing. We need to slow our roll and we need to be financially responsible. That's an example of letting your husband lead and respecting his opinion and decisions with finances. So one of the best ways to do this is being on a budget. One of the best ways to allow your husband to lead in the finances is to be on a budget. And I know there's some women out there that might listen or hear this and think, well, he spends too much money. I'm the one that wants to be on a budget. He's the one being irresponsible and going into debt. We want to recognize that in general, good men want to be financially responsible and plan for the future. Are there exceptions to this? Of course. But in general, good men want to be financially responsible and plan for the future. In general, as women, and I speak from my own experience, we do not like being on a budget because we don't want something telling us what we can and cannot do. And we certainly don't want our husbands to lead in a budget and let them have that control. So this is a wonderful way to consider and step into as a wife to be submissive in a marriage. Simply letting your husband lead and respecting his opinions and decisions as the head of the household and not invalidating him, Being on a budget is a way for us to learn to be responsible. And the good men want to know that it's reasonable for you as a good man to take the lead, and for us as women to be on a budget and put the family first and build financial security. It's just practical, good advice. And we have a lot we can learn as women by being on a budget and learning to let go of making it all about us and what we want and that need to be in control, and actually learning to parent ourselves around money and be financially responsible and allow our husbands to lead in that. That's number one. The second way that women need to be submissive in marriage, I will say before I go to the second one, I'm just planting seeds, so we're not going to go super in depth. But number two of ways women need to be submissive in a marriage, let your husband lead in parenting. Let your husband lead in parenting. Good men are the better parents. Good men are the better parents because they want their children to be independent, responsible, and to know that there are consequences in life. Good men are really, really good at holding children accountable, giving consequences, holding their children to those consequences, so that their children can build the character and strength to navigate the struggles and hardships of life. As women, we bring all of our fears of life and the bad things that can happen in life and the challenging things that can happen in life and our insecurity and fears of that. We bring that all into our parenting and are overprotective of our children and become mother bears that protect our children from the pain and hardship of life, which is one of the worst things that we can do for kids, is to try to protect them from the hardships, realities, and pain of life. Good men understand that the hardship and struggles of life are necessary to build strength and resilience. They are really, really, really good parents, and they naturally know how to lead their children and understanding the realities of life and leading them to build character and integrity and be responsible for their choices and behaviors. As women, we swoop in, and because we are pain avoiders and conflict avoiders, we swoop in and try to even protect our children from their dad of giving consequences or being direct and making a point, when that's exactly what children need to feel loved, to respect their parents, and to become good citizens and make good choices and be responsible and be able to handle the adversity of life. So number two of how women need to be submissive in a marriage, let your husband lead in parenting. Number three of how women need to be submissive in a marriage. Number three, let your husband lead in the bedroom. Number three, let your husband lead in the bedroom. Here's what I mean by this. That as a good man, anything your husband wants to try in the bedroom is reasonable. Anything your husband wants to try in the bedroom is reasonable as a good man. This is so triggering to us as women. I remember the first time that I began to learn this as I've been on this journey and path in my marriage. Oh my goodness, did I get triggered? And the reason for that is, as women, we don't want to give up control. We want the control in the bedroom because we got to keep everything just so that we're not pushed out of our comfort zone to try and explore in anything that might make us feel that we are not in control. It's a control issue. And we get very rigid and frigid in the bedroom, where just if we are having sex still in the marriage, keeping it just what we are comfortable with, and we will again, get very triggered and upset if our husband wants to try anything out of the box that isn't what necessarily we feel comfortable in. So here's my advice to women. There is a book, I've mentioned this book before, and it is called Real Sex for Real Women. And the first few chapters are just normalizing sex for us as women, teaching us about our anatomy. And then the next part of the book is it's very eloquently done. It's very tasteful, but it's a lot of different positions and things you can try in the bedroom. And so I say, if it's in that book, it's reasonable. If you have a hard time believing that anything your husband as a good man wants to do in the bedroom is reasonable, if you have a hard time believing that or accepting that, then you want to get this book. It's, easily 200 pages of different positions and things to try in the bedroom to explore what you like, what you don't like. And so I say, if it's in that book and it's something your husband would like to do, it's reasonable. And we want to do that, one, to show them what they like and what they want to try and is important to them, that we're willing to do what's important to them and not make it all about us. And it gets us outside of our comfort zone in sex to stop being so weird about it and making things gross or I don't want to do that or that's weird. And gets us outside of our comfort zone to explore ourselves and find what we like or don't like. Because as I've mentioned many times before, that we've never figured out what we like because we've had sex for all the wrong reasons and done what we thought we needed to do. So you might get surprised that something your husband wants to do is actually something that you enjoy, that you would never know if you've got your walls up around sex and you're so rigid and frigid that you won't go there, and you make him wrong and bad, that he might like to try something a little out of the box than what you're comfortable with. So that's number 3. Let your husband lead in the bedroom. So recap of the 3 ways that women need to be submissive in a marriage. Number 1, let your husband lead in the financial decisions. Number 2, let your husband lead in parenting. And number 3, let your husband lead in the bedroom. So ladies, after talking about this, I'm going to talk to the women for just a moment and then the men, and then we'll wrap up. Women, this is just basic 101 on how to have a healthy marriage. All this is about is having a partnership, rowing together, letting your husband lead in his strengths as a man so that you can lead in your strengths as a woman and just be a woman and be in your role that will make you feel really, really good about yourself. Again, this is working towards something bigger, that you and your husband are in a marriage and allowing him to lead in his strengths as a man, valuing his opinions, his decision-making as the head of the household, wanting him to feel like a man, allows you to discover and know yourself as a woman and feel really good in yourself as a woman. The key for women is that you have to have a foundation of having a healthy relationship with yourself, of feeling secure and grounded in who you are, feeling good about who you are, so that you stop emasculating your husband. The reason that we emasculate our husbands is because we don't feel good about ourselves on the inside. We don't operate from a place of character and integrity in our lives. We make decisions that are devaluing to who we are. We disrespect ourselves, which makes us feel bad about ourselves on the inside. So we project that out onto our husbands and make them feel wrong and bad because we feel so wrong and bad in ourselves. If you're emasculating your husband, he will never be able to be who he is in the marriage as a leader and a man. So the solution for women to stop being emasculating in their marriages is actually to learn to have a healthy relationship with themselves, which I define as being happy. So the men listening, the purpose of talking about this, because some of you are thinking, yeah, right, this will never happen, that you need to know, good men need to know what's reasonable of how a healthy marriage should look. So it's reasonable that you lead in these ways. It's reasonable that you lead in the household. But for some of you, that's not going to happen. Your wife is not going to change. But you need to know what's reasonable so you know what you can fight for in a healthy, responsible way in your marriage. And if you have a wife that isn't going to change and isn't going to step up, then you can see the reality so that you are not fooled that you are the problem. When you can no longer be fooled by your wife and are grounded to know you are not the problem, then that's how you overcome the emasculation and the gaslighting. So you are no longer giving your power away, and you can make choices about the relationship based on your values and what is important to you, and begin to navigate the relationship with strength and confidence so that you are no longer a victim to the emasculation. And that's why I teach that your wife is your greatest teacher. As men and women, as women, we need to be in camp take responsibility, and men need to be in camp take responsibility. How we get there and what we need to do looks different because we're different as women and men. Women need to take responsibility that we are the problem because we emasculate good men, and that's a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And good men, once they see what's going on and they are woken up to the reality of what happens in a relationship or a marriage with a woman, then to be in camp take responsibility, it's taking back that power you've unknowingly given away so that your wife can no longer emasculate you. It begins to bounce off even if she doesn't change, and you can make decisions about the relationship and what's important to you. But men need to see the reality of what's reasonable in a marriage, and women needing to see what's reasonable in a marriage and what actually makes a healthy, happy relationship. And who would have thunk it? It's being women and being men and being grounded in those roles and responsibilities. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.